everyone, and welcome. I'm Isabel Becker. I'm head of global account management at MGID. And in today's webinar, we'll break down real ad creatives and campaigns from different geographies, highlight local trends, winning approaches, and fail concepts across the US and APAC markets such as India, Vietnam, and Indonesia. This topic is incredibly close to my heart because I like to think of myself as a walking cultural experiment. I am Brazilian. I have Japanese roots, and I've been living here in Europe for the last 11 years. And I've seen firsthand how my own consumer behavior shifts depending on which cultural lens I'm using. One day, I'm responding to the high energy emotional marketing typical of Brazil, and the next, I'm looking for the precision and long-term reliability expected in Japan or Europe. I am one person, yet I'm three different consumers. And that is exactly why we are here today, to move past one size fits all and look at the actual patterns that drive performance across the US and APAC. So here's what we are unpacking today. Why the same creative logic fails across markets, real cases from the US, India, Vietnam, and Indonesia, hits and misses. Two lenses on every case, so the creative and the cultural. Market-specific trends and red flags, practical takeaways you can apply tomorrow, and a sneak peek at what's coming in session 2. And to help us decode these patterns, we have two incredible experts who see this from two very different but complementary angles. First, we have Egbert Schramm. Egbert is the group CEO of the Culture Factor Group. He's an international expert on how culture impacts business with over 20 years of experience across more than 40 countries. He's going to help us understand the why, the deep-seated cultural drivers that influence how people think and behave. And we are joined by Carrie Klimenko. Carrie is the head of creative and compliance at MGID with over 10 years of experience overseeing teams across the US, Europe, Latam, and APAC. She's on the front line of what actually works. She's going to show us the how, the real world ad creatives, the wins, and the common pitfalls of localization gone wrong. And me, myself, I'm just the moderator, so don't bother by me. Egbert and Carrie, thank you both for being here. So we have all been there. You have a campaign that's absolutely crushing it in the US. The CTR is high, the conversions are flowing, so you decide to scale. You translate the copy, keep the same creative and launch in Indonesia or Vietnam, and then nothing, total silence. Native advertising works by blending into the feed, but what feels native is deeply cultural. And the reality is that scaling globally isn't a translation problem, it's a cultural one. What feels like trustworthy in New York can feel aggressive in Jakarta. What looks minimalist in London can look empty in Mumbai. Egbert, I want to start with you. So how limiting is it for an advertiser or marketeer to assume that a modern consumer in a digital world behaves the same way regardless of their cultural heritage? Because CTR numbers don't lie, but they rarely tell you why.
I think the biggest risk is to assume that a country operates as one. So sometimes you can come across, let's say, a target audience of 35 to 45-year-old women in Jakarta that have a similar value profile as 65-year-old Dutch men. So I think like one of the biggest pitfalls that a lot of advertisers make is to kind of equate country with audience. And then in any case, one size fits all in general means you don't reach anybody. So you kind of want to optimize, first understand who is your target audience, and then where can I find similar audiences across the globe?
Okay, that's interesting. If I'm not mistaken, we have here a slide created by you, right? Exactly to show us the markets that we are covering today.
Yep.
If you could talk a little bit about the key cultural traits.
Yeah, so if you want to start, then of course, starting from that country level that I just referred to is a safer choice than just taking the world as one. So if you zoom in a little bit, so you have the globe and you look at a couple of main drivers, and we take 4 of the cultures that we're going to talk about today, you can see already quite a few differences in active behavior. So cultures like the US, if a campaign doesn't trigger a curiosity element, if it's straight in your face, then it's unlikely that people will be intrigued and pulled in to actually react, to click on that particular ad. Cultures like India, Vietnam, Indonesia, they all have an element of connectivity. So the group is important. So we need to use people that are connected. We call it cultural authenticity. Relatableness is really quite important. And then different markets, again, even within APAC. APAC is not one cultural region. And I think that's also a very important lesson for a lot of advertisers, that geographic proximity does not equate cultural similarity. So you kind of need to understand what do markets have in common, so that if you have the budget, you can try to cluster different areas in the globe, but not based on geography, based on culture. So there's some pointers for every specific country. You can use it to cluster to make the most of your budget. But within country, you can go even deeper. So even within the US, depending on whether we talk about Caucasian Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, there will definitely be big changes and differences as well. So it's all a matter of perspective and how deep can you go with the budget that you have.
Okay. That's very interesting. I guess we can use those cultural traits and ad behaviors now with real cases that you show with the hits. So we'll cover now 4 hit cases, and after that we can answer some questions before proceeding to the misses cases. So the first one is US for nutrition. Carrie.
Yeah, I can take it just to give a little bit heads up about how the ad was designed from designer's perspective, from client's perspective, who preparing some trends or collecting the ideas and approaches to create it. So what stays behind that localization of this image, it actually refers to localization because it blends subtle shock value, let's call it like this, with body focused and wellness and beauty trends very much popular on TikTok, Instagram, and other USA social media. So where slightly provocative but clean visuals drive engagement. It localized through the minimalistic aesthetic, polished grooming details, and product-like presentation that aligns with USA consumer portrait. From our perspective, Egbert, I see you're smiling. USA consumer culture and around the personal care, hygiene, and wellness solutions. So go ahead and let me know what you think.
Yeah, in the preparation, we went through a little bit like, if we look at ads like this, one of the things, of course, is that people start looking at that belly button and like, what's in there? So automatically there's this cultural curiosity in the sense that I want to know what this is about. And that will respond well in general to those cultures that are looking for novelty and to be kind of like challenged. And that will be a particular part of the US population. So it's not a surprise that it worked well, because it is novel. It creates a sense of intrigue. You want to know more. You could have, let's say, put a lot of letters on it. You could put the image next to product packaging, and then you would have taken away the intrigue, and then it would not have worked well. So this minimalistic design, it's almost like a Tesla cockpit. There's not a lot in it, and that makes it interesting.
Okay. So the big lesson for the US market is that the intrigue beats explanation every time. So as we see that the creative works because it doesn't look like a brand trying to sell you something. It looks more like a viral secret that the user stumbled upon themselves.
Yeah, and maybe to
like,
answer to answer
sorry,
Alaya questions in the chat. What is it? A good question. I also first was looking at it. It's like, what is it? It's I think, Carrie, it was a piece of lemon in a belly button.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a piece of lemon in a belly button. True, absolutely.
So it's exactly what you said, right? It's about creating the wait. What is that, right?
Yeah. That's the point. That's the point as well. Yeah, and when you do it like this, then you can see that that's a lemon slice just rolled into the belly button. Yeah.
Yeah, and not another just buy this now, right? It's just like, what is this, a product or is it just a secret? What exactly is this? So the next case is also nutrition, but this time that's for India.
Yeah, been back to your side. Just wanted also to add a comment to what Egbert is saying, that because today we are reviewing USA and 3 APAC markets. But as for USA, this is the most, let's say, changeable market for the trends and approaches. So if for the APAC and most of Asian countries, you can stick to the, let's say, template for longer, at least like, let's say for a year, just adding new ideas. Then for USA, I would suggest to refresh your ideas and your vision and to make sure that you are going with the proper path every week, if not every day, if you are updating your creatives in your campaign several times per day. So it's better to make sure maybe something already just appeared in the middle of your creative attempts. Yeah. And I also wanted to, I guess we did not specify it for the audience, that under the ad, we have those product, language, and audience, just to make it clear for everyone that this is still a part of the client's brief or brief for the campaign. So we have here brief context, and we have the details of the audience and the age. So you can use it, you can take it like more informative for you. As for the comments here, the image resonates with the Indian audience. I think it's very, very clear by reflecting familiar to Indian people cultural cues like attire, like jewelry, like visual storytelling, because for this market, it's very commonly used, popular, performing, having the text on the image. As you see, the text is in Hindi for sure, and not just translated. We're going to repeat it a few times during the presentation, not just translated, but created from scratch in Indian, which means totally localized. And it also highlights the relatable body concerns for this region, and emphasis the herbal remedy, because in India culture, people have a very high trust in Ayurvedic approaches and Ayurvedic health solution, natural remedies and stuff. That's it. Egbert, thoughts?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of to Bax's question in the chat there, how do you test cultural fit? So when you look at India overall is quite collectivistic. So relations are important, family is important, that in-group feel, belonging is quite important. The responsibility that you have towards those around you to kind of make sure you feel good and are healthy. You can measure all of this. So you can measure it amongst an existing target group. You can measure it in different subsets of the population. So if you take, for example, this campaign, Hindi, which is spoken predominantly, throughout India, but particularly in the north part of India. So the northern part of India is more what we would call highly uncertainty avoidant compared to the southern part of India, Bangalore, Chennai, etc. So knowing that the north part, in this case of India, is slightly different than the southern part, means you can adjust, in this case, the tonality and also the imagery. So uncertainty avoidance, if a culture is not uncertainty avoidance, you can't really play on it, you can't leverage it this much. But in this case, because it can be hot in different parts of India, and then if you are dealing with overweight, it can make you feel uncomfortable. So in that sense, losing weight will help you and also help you those around you, because of course, if they see that you're struggling with the heat, that might also not be necessarily the most nice thing for them to observe and participate in. So that's how you can tailor campaigns to be more localized even within country. So again, country score is one thing, but if you know a little bit about the culture that you're trying to aim a campaign at the parts of a culture, the regions, for example, you can further localize it, like in this case.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you mentioned climate context, because it's not only about the creative design. It's very helpful information for clients, for account managers to recommend clients and work with the clients regarding when they're selecting the product and the market to launch it, because it's true that for Indian market, with the issues of the climate issues with the heat and bloating reaction, so such products like juice cleansing, any type of detoxing, means a lot and means absolutely different than for European or USA markets, when people just want to use it only being better version of themselves or to do it for beauty. So on Indian market, people refer to such products just because that's a part of the life. So the product itself, even with the average design, which now we are not going to stick to, would be better.
Yeah, and I think building on Carrie, that what you just mentioned, I think this is an important realization when we talk about, for example, in this case, a herbal remedy. Do we use it to optimize our performance? Do we use it to feel comfortable? Very different perspective. And that means we can, again, activate different types of behavior. In an ad like this, we want to first make people aware of it. And then, of course, the next stage would be once they've clicked, then they need to still engage in the purchasing behavior. But understanding the angle that we're trying to activate, this is where cultural know-how can help make the design and the copy come alive.
So the key takeaway here is that the audience needs to see their own daily reality reflected on the creatives, and then they are more likely to click and convert.
Exactly.
Now we have a skincare case for Vietnam.
Yeah, that's a Vietnamese market. And again, so what we did here, it's localized by replacing the original beauty treatment visual. It's under eye cream, but by the original product, we replaced it with a cucumber eye mask routine, which is more recognizable and commonly used in Vietnamese skincare culture. Also, potato slices work here as well. And the copy adapted to Vietnamese, adapted, not translated, not created from scratch, but this is the ad that came from other markets, and it was precisely adapted. So the copy is adapted with given the quick and visible anti-aging results, which very much aligns with local native beauty patterns, because Vietnamese people don't like those, over promises, but they stick to the promises itself. So they want to know what it will give them by the end of the day. All the users buying something, they want to know how the problems will be resolved. But as for this market, we need to be more specific, given the not creating the promise, but given the specific timeframes.
One thing is, I was laughing indeed. Are there ice? Are the chips laying on the ice? Or in this case, no, there were cucumbers. It was again, it's a little bit of an intrigue there. It's what do they have in their eyes? If you look at this from a cultural perspective, so we can see perhaps a little bit of a paradox in the wording that we have here. So on the one hand, Vietnam is what we would consider a more consensus-oriented culture, meaning people like to take care of themselves, that work-life balance is important, quality of life is important. It's also not very highly uncertainty avoidant. And if you think about a highly uncertainty avoidant culture, Japan is an example, Argentina is an example, there's a lot of stress. In a culture like Vietnam, you shouldn't need to be stressed, because you need to have this balance with regards to life. So taking good care of yourself, it's a sign that you're able to do this, that you're able to be relaxed. And when we talk about rewarding confidence, you need to have that confidence in the balance. So taking good care of yourself comes across really good towards people around you as well. You take care of yourself. And that requires a certain level of maturity, which would be one hypothesis why this works exceptionally well in the Vietnamese setting.
Interesting. I think we were also discussing this during the thing that people usually think about the Asian cultures as workaholic, but in this case, in Vietnam, that's not something that they would like to identify themselves, right? They prefer to show that they have the work-life balance in place, and that's why they want to look fresh, to show that everything is balanced in their lives.
Yeah, and what you just mentioned, that's important as well. It's coming across as workaholic and being workaholic, two different things. So when a culture works long hours, are they working long hours, or are they spending a lot of time with each other because that is part of life? It's there's a lot of cultural nuance in terms of if we take cultures that work a lot of hours, are they really identifying with that work, or is it just a social ritual to kind of stay connected, stay in touch with people? And that's part of that cultural analysis that for a lot of brands is important to understand, is that when we see Vietnam working 2,000 hours a year, or South Korea 2,200 hours a year, why is it that they're doing this? Is it because they want to do this? Is it something that drives them? Or is it because, well, the labor market is such that you have to? And that understanding between reality and desire, I would argue, is really important when you talk about, for example, consumer goods and well-being campaigns.
Now we have another skincare one, but this one is for Indonesia, and the difference here is that the target audience is male, right? So the three previous cases we had female, but in this one we have male targeted audience for skincare.
Yeah, but it actually correlates with what Egbert just said for Vietnamese market from the designer's perspective here for this creative, because it actually uses split visual for to show the impact of pollution on skin versus a cleaner and refreshed result. So again, it's a problem solving, and it connects from our cultural perspective that we've considered while creating. So it connects directly to the daily experience. Commuters, highly relevant issue for big cities like Jakarta, making a highly relatable and easy to understand to people. Also, there is a Bahasa Indonesia copy, so not translation, but the creation from scratch. And so to sum up, it's just localization through language and context that I just explained that help what we expect and what we received by the end of the day as a result of in CTR. That the context helps people to accept that this ad feels very native and very close to what they feel on a daily basis. So it's not just like, some specific personal issues. This is a kind of cultural thing about the air pollution, about the how it feels by the end of the day after your work commuting, and this is it. So, and it worked.
Yeah, and I think like you just highlighted an important thing in cultures that are what we would call more short-term oriented, Indonesia as an example, ads need to be very literal, simple, straight to the point, nothing too abstract. In this case, the ad is very simple. You've got scenario one, scenario two, guy in the middle, easy to identify with. It's localized language, collectivistic culture, so it kind of feels like it's the in-group talking. And it's the individual perception on, okay, these two different sides of life, which are both recognizable. So the more short-term oriented a culture is, the more simple, to the point language, abstract language we need to use or literal language, not too abstract. If it's too abstract, then it will go over people's head. They might not have the time or the bandwidth to process it. So simple works.
We have one question here. So we will cover three questions now before going to the misses. Katerina is asking, and I think this one is for you, Carrie. So she said, you showed that bold claims work in Vietnam, but bold claims are also what get ads rejected on most platforms. How do you balance cultural expectations with compliance requirements?
That's a great question, and thank you for this question, because actually this is a very big and very important topic. But that's why we're going to give you a spoiler of session 2 that will be directly correlated with the compliance issue. I mean, MGID compliance issue and overall an industry, because first you create the ad and then you are trying to understand the compliance standards, and it creates a problem with rejections because you put all your efforts on making it culturally appropriate, and then you got rejected because you did not consider some compliance issues. That's why today we are discussing the creative cultural approaches, what to consider, how to stay inspired, and what to count on while studying creating. And on session 2 that we're going to announce very soon, we will discuss all the compliance cases. I mean, like real cases when the ad created for USA market has been rejected for APAC, even if it was on very, very standard, very universal, let's say, for using across the globe, but you still got rejection, and sometimes it's quite confusing. So we're going to discuss the cases and the approaches on how to adjust the ads in a culturally appropriate way.
And I have another question here from Bex Cooper. And this one, I think it's for you, Akbar. How do you test cultural fit for the campaigns that you're about to localize? Are there any tips, tricks?
I mean, the easiest one that's public, so I'll just put it here in the link, is you can use that country comparison on our website that gives you top level information. That I would argue is better than guessing, and that's public, so you can use it. Don't monetize it, so then you would need to pay us some money. But just to kind of get yourself informed, this country level comparison, so I put already in the link a couple of the countries that we talk about today, is very, very useful. If you do have budget, my strong recommendation is, number one, understand your current user community. What are their value drivers? And that can be measured from a cultural perspective, so we can slice and dice markets, and then subsequently compare that with where are you planning to launch the campaign. And based on the differences, should you adjust the hero in the story? Should you adjust the frequency of the copy? All kinds of follow-up work can be done to optimize the potential success rate. But it starts with this understanding, using that country comparison, that, oh, okay, actually culture is quite different than ours. Maybe we want to pause and stop and reflect. Are we really ready to just copy paste? Or maybe we want to think again.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing the link there, Akbar. I see that our marketeers and advertisers are already loving it. Let's move then to the misses cases. So here we have the target women aged between 20 and 40, beauty conscious, same market and same trend as the first hit case for the US. So what went wrong?
Well, actually, I'm quite disappointed with this case, because that type of approach is one of my favorite, and it really works, and we have lots of cases of it working. But we intentionally decided to discuss it today because, yeah, even using this trend, sometimes it fails, and actually we are going to understand why. So the main concept of this creative approach was based on the it's actually global and worldwide trend now on glass skin. It's very popular in on APAC markets as well, but in USA, that's a type of trend that a lots of products and cosmetic brands are now going to bring to the table. So we just wanted to be mostly focused on it because this is the main thing, and that women of the audience target pay attention to when selecting a new product, and what they want to see as a result of their skin. And that's the reason why we kept the copy very short, because the visual speaks for itself on the approach. And maybe actually, Egbert, what do you think? Maybe that was a mistake, and that's what made miss. It was not that clear to audience.
Yeah.
So trend of glass skin and short copy, just to make it focused on only on the trend. And for sure, the like on the left side we show the prototype of product itself to show the natural skincare substance that will lead to the having that result.
So this is one of those examples whereby if you look at a market with a lot of diversity, US being such a market, for Caucasian Americans, the ad isn't inquisitive enough. It's straight into your face, which basically says, put some stuff on your skin and start shining. There's no intrigue. So that's a target group that does not get attracted. For other target groups, let's say African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, the message might be interpreted as whitewashing. Basically, put stuff on your face and become whiter, and that's politically very, very unheard of. So, it's one very important example of understanding the different ethnicities in your target audience and how people might take great offense with messages that do not, of course, intend to create that offense. And then for markets or those parts of the market that might be buying that product, the message is too simple. So you basically miss the important potential buying audience, and you are upsetting other potential buying audiences with a message that can be interpreted in a very wrong way. So that's the cultural angle on this.
So this is the same lesson as in the first case. It's the intrigue beats explanation. If you're targeting Caucasian Americans in with this product, right? So showing the product, already giving, and the ad product feel, that was the mistake here. And for the other, the Spanish Americans, Latin Americans, African Americans, everything else, the image as well, or the headline was not adjusted to them. What would be the solution here? To try different ads target with all those different audiences?
Use different visual. That's one option. Create the intrigue, like with the lemon lemon example. But it starts by understanding who was actually your target audience, because if you look at women 20 to 40, depending on ethnic background, income levels, educational levels, they will react very differently to such a product. So further, I'd say, slicing and dicing of the market would potentially have helped. You can never say always, but it would probably help to avoid the relative failure.
Now we have another case, right? So it's again India and nutritional. What was the miss here?
Yeah, background first. So we already discussed these like the product specifics for Indian market and the issues that it helps to resolve that are very relevant for this audience. These are bloating and fluid retention. So all those drops, herbal blends, detoxes and stuff is very relevant for the market. So it's a common issue for the hot climate. And to make the message more relevant, we even mentioned these issues, not just saying you will resolve the issue with something. So we even call it, and use the old man here to symbolize wisdom and knowledge of natural ingredients, which also correlates with what I mentioned in Mrs. that Ayurvedic methods and approaches are very relevant and popular and very close to acceptance by Indian audience. And yeah, we've seen that the audience are women, but wanted, to play a little bit and to diversify it, but failed in this case.
So this is the powerful reminder that if the audience doesn't see themselves in the creative, they won't engage, right?
It's your earlier example with the bloating remedy, which is you want to create a sense of connectivity. So sense like you want to appeal to that collectivism. And again, because India is also one of the cultures that's a bit more short-term oriented. So indeed, what it says here may help. Could have, would have, should have. It's too vague. It's not specific enough. So those are two very important cultural influences in this particular case.
Yeah, but that's actually an issue with compliance, and we are going to bring even maybe this or similar cases on how to find alternatives on it. But maybe you can recommend, or you have something on your mind or in your materials, like, because it sounds softer. It doesn't give users guarantee, and sometimes it's not compliant. Sometimes it's not according to the client's brief, because they don't want to create the 100% guarantees. That's why May makes it a little bit softer, and this is a very popular thing. I guess it's very helpful for our audience as well, just to know, because to make it softer, to pass compliance successfully, to pass moderation, like just replacing some things with May would help. But in this case, May killed us the performance.
Yeah. So if you look at the statement, what may help relieve bloating and fluid retention, you can just take away what may help.
Okay.
You just basically have this title: relieve bloating and fluid retention.
So it's better just to use nothing than to use may.
Yes.
Such cases. Okay.
Yes, I mean, because of healthcare, of course, you've got the healthcare compliance with you. If you can't say 100% or will if it's not clinically proven, but just taking away the vagary and implying without explicitly mentioning it, it takes away the vagueness. Yet, from a legal compliance point of view, it does not say it will.
Okay. Got it.
That's very interesting. Yeah. You're not overpromising and you're not keeping it vague.
You're leading perceptions, basically.
Yes. Yes. And now we have two cases here. So one is for Vietnam for nutrition, and the other one is Indonesia for skincare.
So as for the first one, the left one on the left side, so the idea was to keep the imagery depicting the local food that like should be culturally accepted by people and grab attention to me, like to be more organic to their lives. And actually maybe we went a little bit too deep inside, because for the product itself, and this were detox drops, like the method of using was just adding these drops to the everyday food, and we wanted to show the process of just like that it's fast and easy just to use the product in your everyday life with your daily meals, and showing daily meals here without person, but and also that there is no person, and maybe sometimes it's like the user should be interested on what's going on here, so it creates like, you know, kind of curiosity driven approach. This is what we wanted to create with this local food, but it failed in this case. There are cases when it worked, but yeah, but what we are wondering to understand, why do you think it failed if we followed all the cultural codes, let's call it like this? What happened here?
I would argue in this Vietnamese case, to kind of again add the cultural angle to the observation that are indeed, I would say, pointing in the right direction. Collectivistic society, meaning visual cues, meaning people. I don't see people. So that's a relatively simple one. The second element, the opposing messaging, again, Vietnam, short-term, relatively short-term oriented culture. So simplicity and opposing direction isn't simple, because then I'm kind of left with my brain. Is it this way or is it that way? So we're not leveraging the natural kind of focus area, which is looking for reinforcement of belonging via visual cues, meaning people. And we'll come back to which people, because that context dependent in the next discussion. But any face is better than no face. And then the second component is the simplicity of the message, and paradoxes are never simple. So those would be the two cultural drivers to keep in mind with collectivistic, short-term oriented cultures at a higher level.
Very interesting. Okay. So the second one, that's very interesting for me to understand what happened here as well, because actually everyone knows, and it's still relevant as for, let's say, creative scientific materials, that you need to, there are emotions that you should use when building the creative strategy or using the creative approaches. So here we wanted to, yeah, this is the product to solve the problem, and it can be shown through the emotion of scare. So family oriented visual, just to show the family, because this is the most valuable thing for everyone and for the audience, and that's why we created those like family scene where the headline exactly showing what trigger, what problem the product is going to solve through fear.
And then I think this builds on what I mentioned in terms of, so Indonesia, it's also a collectivistic society, as most of the world is. So we want to use people, but because it is a fear setting and we talk about a disease, who has the authority? Indonesia is a more hierarchical culture, so we want to have somebody with authority in the image. Are these parents? It's interesting that they're wearing the same shirts. They could also both be healthcare workers, so it's perhaps not quite clear. Are they doctors or are they parents? But I would argue is that be mindful that if we deal with more serious stuff, so not food, but like actual disease like measles, then in more hierarchical collectivistic cultures, we're looking to somebody that has a certain sense of authority, whether that is a public figure and or a authority figure in terms of being a doctor. People for sure, but the right type of people, because the message is related to our dearest ones and potential disease.
I guess this actually answers back, Scooper, your question that you're thinking. If does that mean that the visual localization is actually more important than the language localization? So in this case,
I would argue that in any collectivistic culture, the visual is more important than the language. Like the visual will speak more than words, and if you then add a couple of additional components on it, if it's a not so high, and if it's not a very high uncertainty avoidant culture, so more low uncertainty avoidant culture, like Indonesia happens to be, Vietnam as well for that matter, you, in any case, one don't want to have too much text. Whereas if you would go to a culture like, say, Japan or France, higher uncertainty avoidance tends to mean a lot of text, because more knowledge is better. So these are some of those components where you need to balance visual and then the type of visual with text.
okay. So it depends on the culture. In some cultures, visual is more important, and others, it's more about the text. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, I think we can answer some other questions before we go to the do's and don'ts. I have a question here from Alaya Russ. Is there a chance to target more than one group with one creative? If so, how? I guess it depends on the groups that you want to target, right? So they need to share some kind of similarity that needs to be represented on the creative.
From a cultural perspective, like, keep in mind, we're all people, and as people, we need three things. We need a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and a sense of appreciation. And this is where we're the same. Where we differ is how do we express these things. This is where culture plays an important role. And depending on the product category, depending on your current target audience, it is possible, but this is something that we do on bespoke level, to understand who is my tribe, so to say. Who are the existing buyers of my product? What are their cultural value drivers? And where on the globe can I find similar cohorts of people? But this is not given for free on our website because, of course, we're also a commercial entity. So you can do this. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. As I said, there's so many dependables, but it is possible to understand. Now, let's say you have a new product, you don't have an existing user base yet. Then it's about understanding, okay, what do you want to do with the product? What do you believe? What is the makeup of your marketing team? Because sometimes marketing teams are exceptionally culturally biased. We had a case with an expensive car manufacturer. The whole team didn't understand the concept of access to decision makers. Well, if you buy an expensive car, maybe you're one of the few. So it's also that internal marketing team bias that needs to be accounted for.
I guess you already answered his second questions, which was how do you define the right target audience for this or that product? You just answered with your additional explanation. We are running out of time and we still have a couple of things to cover. So Carrie, can you take us through quickly through the patterns behind the performance?
Yeah, sure. So this slide in our presentation actually correlates with the so-called cheat sheet that we prepared for you, because with today we've briefly, for sure, but this is what we have time for. We briefly covered some cultural things, how to consider them when creating ads yourself, or even like referring the brief to the design team, your own, or our MGID. With our MGID, it will be easier. But if you don't have time for those cultural analysis, sometimes there's a time-sensitive campaign or very specific product again, but that you need to do it right here, right now, and you need to understand at least what to start is. So this cheat sheet will help you to make the creatives localized. I'm highlighting localized, not obviously culturally appropriate, because this is what we're going, and we're going to give you one more cheat sheet for compliance issues on our session 2. So using this two, you will succeed. But here, as for creatives, there are like 4 these are not approaches, but rather exercises that will help you to be prepared, like let's say in 30 minutes. So first one is very obvious, and we mentioned it during the today's presentation various times. So it's don't translate the copy. It's very important to write natively. And now with the era of AI, more and more people referring the translations or their text to AI, understand, thinking that AI tool will adapt it for them. And actually, lots of AI tools, they are good with localization, but you still need to keep an eye on it. So it's not just a translation. That's the context that stay behind. So any translator or automatic tool can give you proper grammar version, but it might not consider the cultural notes. So even if you do it with AI, write a proper prompt to have it adjusted, not just translated. So to have like a user own inner voice. The second one, these are local looking people. That's again very basic and very obvious. And this is something we didn't even mention. We just showed it in our visuals and cases, even for the misses, because this is basic. And if you are thinking that okay, that people are people now traveling everywhere, so this is something that can be used across the globe. No, if you're going to hit the specific local audience and specific target group, so make sure that your people, like people used on visuals for the creatives, they look local. The third one, these are places. So if there is a room for using the specific geolocation or some symbolic places that will point to the specific location without naming it, so it will be very close. The acceptance of the visual will be quite different. For instance, you can show the person in front of the supermarket sign. I know the question might be, wouldn't it be illegal endorsement? No, if they like supermarkets, these are common public places. This is something like the central square in somewhere in the city. So, and with this sign, people will take the creative, like this is something recommended by their neighbor. This is something where they've been a couple of days ago. So, and it creates absolutely different cultural acceptance and might bring you higher performance. And fourth one, it was about local trends. All in all, knowing trends is very important if you work with creative. So it would be even better if you will do it like on a daily basis, or let's say quickly. You can go to, like, let's say TikTok Creative Center, Instagram recommendations, and just spend 5-10 minutes per day just to be aware of what's going on. But if you are not doing it on a daily basis, or you don't need it before making your creative, spend just 5-10 times setting the proper location via social media and check what's going on here, what trends are there. And it will, if it won't give you the direct approach to create, it will give you the inspiration on where to concentrate and how to put your materials in a proper way. That's it.
And then for the rest, this is about what we covered during the hits and misses for each geo.
Yeah. That on a slide,
Yeah.
it's mostly the
Yes.
summary of what
Yes.
we've just discussed with the Egbert comments. Yeah.
Are there any, Diana is asking, are there any peculiarities in using emotions in creative space on culture? I mean, will fear work the same for Vietnam and US cultures?
So if you think about emotions and fear, or if fear is an emotion, but in some cultures, fear just freezes people. It doesn't instigate action, it instigates inaction. So fear of missing out, fear of failure, two different types of fear. So understanding what is the type of fear that I need to activate or try to not activate is going to be crucial. So emotions are very cultural specific. Even within the US, amongst different ethnicities, for some, fear leads to analysis by paralysis, meaning people won't budge because they want to feel comfortable. For others, fear of missing out will drive people because, hey, you want to basically be part of the crowd. So yes, culture impacts fear, and as to the previous answers as well, again, it is about understanding who specifically is my target group, and is it going to be which particular type of fear that I want to drive? That's where you really want to take a moment, pause, and reflect.
So that's all the time we had today, right? I think we are even running a little bit long, but our conversation doesn't end here. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time. And we hope that this was good for you, and put all the learnings that you got today in practice on your creatives.
More than welcome.
Thanks,
Have a nice
everyone.
day. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.